Today we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations using graphing. Now, when we talk about solving quadratic equations, you may see the words solutions, find the solutions. You might see the words find the zeros or find the roots. All three of these terms mean the same thing. And solutions, zeros, and roots are really referring to the x-intercepts that you get when you graph a quadratic equation. Now, different quadratic equations are going to look differently when you graph them. Okay, if you look at this parabola right here, and if I'm going to highlight on each of these graphs, I'm going to highlight the x-axis here. Okay, if you look at this first parabola, we can see that this parabola crosses that x-axis in two places, okay, which means it has two x-intercepts. Remember, intercepts are the same as solutions, so if I have two x-intercepts, that means I have two solutions. If I look at this parabola here, the way it is, it only touches that x-axis in one place. There's only one x-intercept. One x-intercept means one solution. And I put two of them here. Again, you can see on this parabola, it also only touches in one spot. So each one of these parabolas only has one solution. And finally, if we look at our last parabola over here, we can see that this parabola never ever touches that x-intercept. Since there's no x-intercepts, the parabola never touches the x-axis. Since there are no x-intercepts, that means there are no solutions. And what we can do is use this information to help us figure out how many solutions we have. What we want to do is take this equation and graph it. Now, the easiest way to graph an equation is to start off by finding our axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is going to follow this formula, x equals negative b over 2a. All right, so let's plug in our values. We know that this is a, the coefficient in front of that, b is the coefficient here, c is our number. So x equals negative 4 over 2 times 1, which is going to be negative 4 over 2, which means that my axis of symmetry is negative 2. Okay? Now the reason this is important to find is because when we go to make our table of values, we want to start our table of values using the vertex. Okay? And we know the vertex is going to go right through the axis of symmetry. So I know the middle value of my vertex, or the middle value in my table, should be the x value of my vertex. And I want to put in about two numbers above the vertex and two numbers below the vertex, so I get numbers on either side. Now when it comes to graphing, what we want to do from here is we're going to use our TI-83 to help us create a table of values. And the first thing I need to do is take the equation that I have right here and plug it into my calculator. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x plus 3. Now to look at my table, I'm going to hit the second key and then the graph key, and it's going to come up with a table of values. Now I want negative 2 to be my vertex. So if I look up here, I see negative 2, but I'm going to have to scroll up a little bit to get these other values. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those values and fill in the rest of my chart. Okay? Now let's go back here. Get rid of the calculator. And now what I want to do is I want to take these ordered pairs and put them on my graph. So I'm going to go negative 4, comma 3, go over negative 4, up 3, and I'll put a dot. And eventually I'm going to connect all those points together to create this parabola. Looking at the parabola now, my very last question, name my solutions. The solutions are the place where this parabola crosses the x-axis. So I have one solution right here, 1, 2, 3. That's at negative 3, comma 0. And I have a second solution, which is right here, which is at negative 1, comma 0. So this has two solutions, those two x-intercepts. Okay, let's try another one. Again, start off with your axis of symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. Now this time when I go to put in my negative b, b is negative 6, so negative 6 is a positive 6. So I'm going to put that in and then simplify it. That gives me x equals 6 over 2. Gives me an x-intercept. Not an x-intercept, an axis of symmetry of x equals 3. Again, 3 is going to be the middle point of my table. I'm going to have two numbers on either side of it, and then we'll go back to our calculator. Okay, I'm going to go back to y equals, so I can put my equation in. I'm going to clear this equation out of the way, and I'm going to put in my new one. x squared minus 6x plus 9. And then I'm going to go and create my table of values, hit my second key, and then my graph key. And I know that I want numbers from 1 to 5, so what I'm going to have to do is scroll down here a little bit until I get the numbers 1 to 5. There they are. And I can see my y values right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these y values to finish my table. Now that I have all these ordered pairs, it's time for me to just graph them. So we'll come over here, we'll take this, 1, 4, I'm going to go over 1, up 4, and sketch my graph. Now when I look at this parabola, when it comes to naming my solutions are the place where they cross the x-axis, right here. Okay, that's the only solution I have, because it's the only place where it crosses the x-axis. If I want to name this solution, it's at 3, 0. Okay, so there's only one solution, one ordered pair. Let's try one more example here. Last one, axis of symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. Plug in your negative b value. So x is going to be negative 2 over 2 times 1, which is going to give me negative 2 over 2, which gives me an axis of symmetry of negative 1. That axis of symmetry is going to be the x value, the middle of my table here. I'm going to put 2 numbers above it, 2 numbers below it. Time to create the table of values using my calculator. So go back to y equals, hit your clear button, get this equation in, x squared plus 2x plus 3. Go over to your table. We want the values that go from negative 3 down to 1, so I'm going to have to scooch up on my table a little bit. I see my y values right here, so I'm going to use those numbers to fill in my table, and it's time to make my graph. Negative 3, 6, I'm going to go over negative 3, up 6, put a point, connect all my points together, and I'm left with this graph. Now if I look at this, I can see my x-axis right here. This parabola does not touch this x-axis, so what that means is this parabola, this quadratic equation, has no solutions. Okay?